As the war still rages between Israel and Hamas, commentators are now looking for solutions to stop the bloodshed and unnecessary loss of life. Sky News All-Stars Piers Morgan and Douglas Murray explore the current state of play in the war and discuss the possibility of there ever being a solution to this conflict. It's become starkly clear that as long as Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is still in power, peace will not be achieved in the region. Palestinian National Initiative leader Mustafa Barghouti told Piers Morgan that Israel needs to stop the occupation in order for peace to be achieved.
Well, my reaction is that Mr. Regev speaks about Palestinians have to give up. Give up what? I don't understand. And he wants peace. He wants security without ending the Israeli occupation. He ignores the basic facts, which is that Israel has conducted ethnic cleansing against 70% of the Palestinian people, forcing them to become refugees, and is depriving them from coming home for all these 75 years. Second, is ignoring that Israel is conducting the longest occupation in modern history, 56 years of occupation of West Bank and Gaza. He's ignoring the fact that we are all suppressed by Israel, not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank. We are being killed in the West Bank. We are being killed in the Gaza Strip. He speaks about that the numbers of victims is incorrect. I mean, this is very silly because I think the health ministry has issued the names of everybody that is killed with their ID numbers and their age and everything. So, Unfortunately, what we've heard is the same thing that Israel has been doing for all the last 75 years.
Sky News All-Star Piers Morgan asked Sky News All-Star Douglas Murray if he saw any possible way the Israeli government would end the war peacefully.
The main discussion here is there Israeli occupation of Palestinian land or not? If people are occupied, what does international law say? International law says that people who are under occupation have the right to struggle against their occupiers.
No, it doesn't.
No. That's what the UN says. You can't deviate the discussion. And the main fact here is that the problem we have is that Israel is occupying Palestinian land, and Israel is oppressing Palestinian people. Since 1967, Israel conducted 1 million arrests against the 7 million people who are living there. How could this be acceptable?
Okay.
What we see here is the worst and most difficult occupation in modern history.
Just to be clear, I am the anchor. I am the anchor, and I'm now going to Douglas respond to that. Douglas.
Two things. First of all, Mr. Barghouti talks about the Israelis
Mr.
not
Barghouti,
wanting
let Mr. Murray speak, please.
Mr. Barghouti doesn't want to.
Mr. Barghouti, let Douglas Murray respond. Don't talk over him.
Yeah, okay, fine, please.
Mr. Barghouti doesn't want a two-state solution because he doesn't want a Jewish state. He wants the river to the sea to be a Palestinian state, ruled by him and his corrupt friends. But secondly, he cannot answer the question I've put to him repeatedly. This is the PA budget. It rewards terrorism. And let me just finish, Mr. Barghouti, since I allowed you that right in the end. This budget not only extends to rewarding the people who carry out acts of terrorism against Jews and the families of people who do, thus incentivizing terror, and that's the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority has also now committed to pay salaries to the fighters and the terrorists of Hamas from October the 7th and their families. So tell me, please, Piers, or Mr. Barghouti, where is the good negotiating partner on the Palestinian side here exactly?
Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap this by saying this. I don't think there is a good negotiating party on either side. I don't think you can possibly have peace with Hamas still in place.
Mr. Barghouti clapped back at Douglas Murray, saying the commentator was repeating the aggressive and fascist propaganda of the Israeli government.
Absolutely rubbish. Just repeating Israeli propaganda, just repeating false, and I don't agree with him that he has verified what I said. I don't agree with him totally. And he is repeating the same aggressive and fascist speech. They don't want two states. What do they want to do with the 7 million people? 7 million Palestinians live on the land of historic Palestine, equal to the number of Jewish people. What is the solution? They don't want two-state solution? Fine, let's have one democratic state with equal rights for everybody. But no, Netanyahu and his fascist government, he has fascists in his government. He has Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who call themselves fascist. These people don't want to see a two-state solution, don't want to see one democratic state. So their solution is exactly what they are trying to do in Gaza now, which is genocide and ethnic cleansing. Genocide. It is genocide what's happening, because we are talking about 32,000 Palestinian people killed, including those under the rubble, and 64,000 people injured, 63,000 people injured. That is 4% of the population. If that had happened in the United States of America, you would be talking about 12 million people killed or injured. Is that acceptable?
Okay.
Is it not that Israel is occupying the West Bank?
Okay,
Isn't the United States of America saying that there is occupation?
Okay,
The international law says there is occupation.
I hear you.
The Israeli government spokesperson Mark Regev slammed this claim, saying the IDF are transparent with their numbers and it's Hamas who are spreading propaganda.
You don't know you've killed 9,000 Hamas terrorists.
Can I tell you, when we've made a mistake with numbers, we've corrected ourselves.
Yeah, but you don't know you've killed 9,500, do you? You can't.
No, that is the intelligence information that we have. We think that's an accurate number. It could be more, it could be less, but that's. I mean, people are always asking us for our numbers. If we don't provide them, people say, "What are you hiding?"
Well, how many?
These are the best numbers I can offer.
Okay, but just to push you on that, if you can be that precise about the number of Hamas terrorists, you must also know how many civilians you've killed. So how many civilians do you believe you've killed?
No, but it's a little more complicated. If a Hamas fighter is wearing civilian clothes, is he civilian? If he's a 17-year-old man with an AK-47, a 17-year-old boy, I should say, with an AK-47, is he a child or is he a combatant? In other words, Hamas plays with the numbers. They want you to believe that they're all children, they're all women. No, Israel does not target innocent civilians. Israel does not target Gaza's civilian population. We target Hamas. Now, have there been civilians caught up in the crossfire between the Israel Defense Forces and the Hamas terrorists? Of course they have. There hasn't been a war in history without, unfortunately, people being caught up in the crossfire without civilian casualties. But are we making in Israel an effort to avoid that? Of course we are. For us, every civilian death, that's a tragedy. But for Hamas, who deliberately uses Gaza's civilians as human shields, it's not a tragedy, it's their strategy. They deliberately embed themselves under schools, under hospitals, in civilian neighborhoods.
The debate then erupted, with Douglas Murray calling Mr. Barghouti a terrorist apologist and revealed Hamas pay terrorists a salary.
Let me just quickly say this about the genocide thing. Of course that's the case. Mr. Barghouti likes to throw around the word fascist. Fine, I'll throw it back at you, Mr. Barghouti. Not just a fascist, but an apologist for terrorists. Fine. We can all throw around slurs at each other. But more important is the fact that you said that I had told lies. Unlike you, I don't tell lies. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Unlike you, I don't speak out of two sides of my mouth. I'm speaking out of one side of my mouth, and it's direct at you. So let me just correct what you just said. You said what I said were lies. Unfortunately for you, I have here with me the amended Palestinian Prisoners Law of 2004. Now, Mahmoud Abbas, who now runs the Palestinian Authority, signed this into law. This means that, and I'm quoting Article 2 here, prisoners, anyone incarcerated in the occupation's prisons for his participation in the struggle against the occupation will be given a salary by the let me finish my point. Will be given a salary by the Palestinian Authority. Oh, you think they're freedom fighters? Well, let me tell you another couple of things then. Because everyone watching pays their taxes, and some of their taxes go to the Palestinian Authority. Here's the budget, the Palestinian Authority in 2018. This is the PA's own budget, Mr. Barghouti, so don't lie about that. $162 million was allocated to the Prisoners and Released Prisoners Ministry. In 2018, approximately $193 million was given by the PA to families of the martyrs. There is an increasing list, depending on how many Jews you've killed, of the amount of money you get. Is the Palestinian Authority doing that or not, Mr. Barghouti? Because I have their budget in my hand.
Okay, Mr. Barghouti, out of respect for fairness, answer that question.
Yeah, but I am sure your guest has to be a bit polite. You can't keep saying.
Well, you can answer that one question.
Well, I will answer it. Yes, they support the prisoners' families. They support as form of social security support. They support the. I mean, nobody. Even if you consider, even if you consider somebody is doing something wrong, you cannot punish his children and his wife in an act of collective punishment.
This is salaries to the people who do the terror, as you well know, Mr. Barghouti.
And then you said something wrong also. Palestinian Authority really does not. I don't defend the Palestinian Authority, but I'm telling you, 90% of the Palestinian Authority budget comes from taxpayers, from Palestinian people. And only 10% comes from
the Israeli government.
No. And Israel is committing piracy, stealing our taxpayers' money, preventing health people from getting their salaries, preventing the Palestinian Authority from. You shut up, please. Let me answer. Can you shut up? Don't interrupt me, please.
Well, you don't
or I will
answer,
be interrupting you each time you speak. You shut up. You are not the one who is asking me the questions. You're not the anchor, so shut up, please.
The pair then went on to debate the question of Israeli occupation of Palestine.
The main discussion here is there Israeli occupation of Palestinian land or not? If people are occupied, what does international law says? International law says that people who are under occupation have the right to struggle against their occupiers using all forms.
It doesn't.
No. That's what the UN says. You can't deviate the discussion. And the main fact here is that the problem we have is that Israel is occupying Palestinian land, and Israel is oppressing Palestinian people. Since 1967, Israel conducted 1 million arrests against the 7 million people who are living there. How could this be acceptable?
Okay.
What we see here is the worst and most difficult occupation in modern history.
Just to be clear, I am the anchor. I am the anchor, and I'm now going to Douglas respond to that. Douglas.
Two things. First of all, Mr. Barghouti talks about the Israelis
Mr.
not
Barghouti,
wanting
let
a
Mr.
two-state
Murray
solution.
speak, please.
Mr. Barghouti doesn't want to.
Mr. Barghouti, let Douglas Murray respond. Don't talk over him.
Yeah, okay, fine, please.
Mr. Barghouti doesn't want a two-state solution because he doesn't want a Jewish state. He wants the river to the sea to be a Palestinian state, ruled by him and his corrupt friends. But secondly, he cannot answer the question I've put to him repeatedly. This is the PA budget. It rewards terrorism. And let me just finish, Mr. Barghouti, since I allowed you that right in the end. This budget not only extends to rewarding the people who carry out acts of terrorism against Jews and the families of people who do, thus incentivizing terror, and that's the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority has also now committed to pay salaries to the fighters and the terrorists of Hamas from October the 7th and their families. So tell me, please, Piers, or Mr. Barghouti, where is the good negotiating partner on the Palestinian side here exactly?
Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap this by saying this. I don't think there is a good negotiating party on either side. I don't think you can possibly have peace with Hamas still in place.
Piers Morgan says there can be no meaningful peace in the region without a two-state solution.
There can be no meaningful and lasting peace in Israel without a two-state solution. That is surely a fundamental fact. It means both sides of this intractable conflict recognize another's right to exist. It means that Palestinians have the same rights as Israelis, enshrined in law. It douses the flames of burning resentment which rage across the Middle East and so much of the Muslim world. And in doing so, it would ultimately make Israel a safer place. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has abandoned all pretense of a two-state solution. With increasingly incendiary rhetoric, he's made it crystal clear that he sees only one state, from the river to the sea. This weekend, Netanyahu doubled down again. President Biden spoke to him for the first time in a month, emerging optimistically from the phone call to say a two-state solution is still possible, even with Netanyahu in charge. But then Netanyahu responded by posting this: "I will not compromise on full Israeli security control over all the territory west of Jordan, and this is contrary to a Palestinian state." And the hardliners in his own party are backing him to the hilt. They say that even discussing a Palestinian state is rewarding violence and putting a price on terror. But that is the textbook rhetoric of an occupying power. It's precisely the dynamic that has radicalized Palestinians against Israel. There is no moral defense of Hamas and no justification for its barbaric attack on October the 7th. I've made that repeatedly clear. There's also no defense of calling Palestinians human animals, for claiming there are no innocent civilians in Gaza, or for saying the common goal of all Israelis is to erase Gaza from the face of the earth. All genuine comments made by supporters of Netanyahu since the war began. Netanyahu looks increasingly like he's clinging to power and pandering to the hardliners in his cabinet to keep his job. Former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak today told Netanyahu, "In the name of God, go," warning that Israel will sink in the Gaza mud for years to come if he continues to lead the country. Protesters today stormed the Israeli parliament to demand Netanyahu's government does more to secure the return of their loved ones, still held captive by the very people he vowed to eradicate. Yes, Israel must defend itself. Every country has that right and a duty. He's right about that, but he must also recognize that the war cannot go on forever. Hamas is both a proponent and a product of oppression. Without freedom and rights, more radicalization will surely follow. One of Israel's most distinguished leaders once wrote that an open-ended, all-out war in Gaza would be hollow and self-defeating. The Hamas leaders would come out from their holes and declare victory among the ruins, he said. Who was it that wrote those words? Benjamin Netanyahu.
But he concedes with the current administrations governing both Israel and Palestine, peace cannot be achieved.
I'm going to wrap this by saying this. I don't think there is a good negotiating party on either side. I don't think you can possibly have peace with Hamas still in place. I don't think we're going to achieve peace with Benjamin Netanyahu in charge of Israel and his hardline right-wing cabinet. So if you want my honest view, I think we need a completely clean broom of leadership. And that's the only way this is ever going to get resolved.
Israeli spokesperson Mark Regev confirms this, saying Israel must defend their territory.
Which is, what gives Israel the right to believe that it should exercise this kind of control over Palestinians' right to have their own state?
The right of self-defense, the right of my country to live in security, the fact that we have to base peace on realities and not some sort of pipe dream. And the reality will always be, for the foreseeable future, that Israel lives in a tough neighborhood. And any peace understandings reached that don't take that into account and aren't built solidly on security and an infrastructure of security, no such peace can survive.
Right, but is this open-ended then?
But he doesn't agree with the polls who claim Netanyahu is losing support over the war. He instead insists that Israel is united in their pursuit to destroy Hamas and bring the remaining hostages home.
You know, it's interesting because I'm familiar with the polls that you cite and others. But the truth is as following. If you ask Israelis, do you support the war aims as articulated by the Israeli government, which is to have Hamas's military machine destroyed, to bring all the hostages home, and to destroy this Hamas-ruled enclave on our south, to destroy their political rule, you get overwhelming support. From left to right to center, 80-90% of Israelis. I heard today the leaders of the Israeli Labour Party, they propose no confidence in the government over economic issues, but they don't propose no confidence on the waging of the war and the war aims. On the contrary, Israeli society is united that Hamas must be destroyed as a political and military force. And you can understand why, because when Hamas crossed the border on October 7th and started killing us, they didn't ask us if we supported Netanyahu or we opposed him, if we're left or right, if we're religious or secular, if we supported judicial reform or opposed judicial reform. Hamas just killed everyone they found. And I think for Israelis, we have our passionate debates in this country, just as you have in Britain and people have in democracies around the world. Of course, we have our passionate political debates. But ultimately, I think October 7th was a moment when Israelis understood we have enemies, and there are people, young soldiers now fighting in Gaza against Hamas. Some of them are left-wing, some of them are right-wing. There are different political opinions, but we understand as a country we have to get this done. Hamas must be destroyed, it must be removed from power, and we must do everything that we can to get the hostages home.